captured these images on your screen now of a so-called suicide drone. It's an unmanned aircraft which is designed to explode on impact. Holly Williams has the latest now on these terrifying aerial attacks.
For the second time this month, city streets in the center of Ukraine's capital have been pummeled. Russia's repeatedly denied targeting civilians, but this neighborhood is jam-packed with apartment buildings, schools and restaurants. Ukraine says the Russians used so-called suicide drones, which explode on impact, causing devastation. The US says Iran has agreed to sell several hundred of them to Moscow. Today's attack comes after Russia claimed over the weekend that Ukraine shelled the city of Belgorod, just over the border, with civilians wounded. And in eastern Ukraine, where the front line extends for around 1,500 miles, there's been more deadly fighting. Ukraine's
the idea that they're using drones, like kamikaze drones, right? Drones that explode on impact, one-off drones like this, corresponds to what I've been seeing in like OSINT Twitter about potentially Russia's missile systems running low on missiles. I don't know if that's the truth or not. I have no way of accounting for it. I just don't know, right? But it's also straight up terrorism. Regularly, routinely targeting civilian areas beyond the, regularly and routinely targeting civilian areas beyond the established boundaries of the war, which is supposed to be, in the Eastern Front, is done with the specific purpose of causing chaos and disruption in the everyday existence of Ukrainians, in the everyday lives. Russia can say they're not targeting civilians, but let's be real, they fucking absolutely are.
Zelensky claimed last night that Russia has deployed 2,000 former prisoners to fight there, calling it state-sponsored terror.
It is
in the
state-sponsored
early
terror.
weeks of Russia's brutal invasion, Moscow's forces moved on Kyiv. The Ukrainian resistance, though, took the world by surprise, forcing the Russians to retreat and redirect their attacks to the east of the country. But after Ukraine blew up a bridge in territory occupied by Russia this month, vitally important for the Russian military, Moscow retaliated by again targeting the Ukrainian capital.
On Saturday, Moscow says 2 of its soldiers shot and killed 11 other service members while they were training at a firing range inside Russia. The Russian authorities are calling it a terrorist attack. This comes as Russia continues its push to mobilize 300,000 reservists to beef up its forces in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's that paired up with it is the terror and the Ukrainians doing the same terror, they just don't show it on CNN. Wait, what? This is so fucking, what an idiot. Why did he do this? Okay, we'll talk about Elon Musk in a second. There was also, Russia says 11 were killed in a shooting in a military base in Belgorod, where a gunman opened fire on volunteer soldiers of the Russian military training ground in Belgorod, killing 11 and wounding 15 others. So here's the thing, okay? Ukraine is fighting a war against an invading force. That's just the truth. If you were to talk about Ukrainian actions with respect to like LPR, DPR territories, proxy war between the Russian state and the Ukrainian state, that's entirely separate. Right now, they are fighting a war for emancipation, okay? They are fighting a war. It might have, they might also be participants of the American military-industrial complex, but ultimately, Ukrainians are fighting a fucking war against Russia, which is invading Ukraine, okay? That's it. That's the truth. That's the truth of the matter. Doesn't fucking matter. It does not. It doesn't matter what you say about like Ukrainians overextending or doing crazy shit. Whether it be things that even the American government has come out and criticized them for example, the Dugin assassination, right? The botched Alexander Dugin assassination that ended up killing Dugin's daughter, or whether it be still, again, targeting critical infrastructure in Crimea that civilians are using regularly as well. Ultimately, they are trying to, they're trying to defend their country from Russian invasion. Okay? What I am fearful of, and I've talked about this already since I saw American State Department members talking regularly about Russia could use a fucking nuclear bomb, but if they use one, it'll be a baby nuke. It'll be a tactical nuke. It won't be that big of a fucking nuke. What? It's okay that Dugin's daughter, a Nazi, was killed, but I'm going to send for Azov and OUN. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's I don't give a shit about the fucking Dugins, and I don't give a shit about the Azov battalion. There is no such thing as a baby nuke, okay? I don't think that is okay. I don't think that's adequate. I don't think that's appropriate. And I am fearful now more than before, even though the American State Department is stating that, Russia has not escalated or done anything, done any movements that they would consider to be terrifying, that they would consider, beyond the pale with respect to deploying nukes or moving nukes around. Okay? I think the State Department is trying to say that if Russia used a tactical nuke, they would not nuke back. Yes, I know. I understand that. They are saying that. They're saying if Russia used a tactical nuke, it would not be all-out war as long as the tactical nuke was, as long as the tactical nuke was used within the Ukrainian boundaries, which, again, doesn't fucking matter because it's still a nuke, and it's still a nuke that will hit Ukraine potentially. Additional fears that I have with respect to Russia using a nuke was also all the Russian allied forces, like states that are aligned with the Russian Federation and aligned with, including China, making efforts to evacuate all citizens under emergency evacuations from Ukraine. This came out yesterday, where hundreds of citizens plan to evacuate Ukraine after the war escalates. The South China Morning Post. More than 200 people indicate they will leave the country as security worsens. Beijing has increased calls for citizens to flee as Russia hits back over Crimea bridge attack. Now, this could mean China wants to evacuate because they think Russia is just like indiscriminately going to keep bombing civilian populations on top of Ukraine, and they don't want anyone to die, any Chinese national to die. Or it could mean that China knows, or countries aligned with the Russian Federation know something that we don't. And that's the reason why they are escalating their calls for evacuation more than they did before. Attacks on more Western population centers could be the full rationale for pulling the Chinese nationals out. Certainly. That is certainly the case. They were fucking up Kyiv, and I think mostly in China knew. No shot. There will be a nuke, and Russia doesn't even need one. They have almost all the territory they set out to get. This is propaganda from the State Department. If it's propaganda from the State Department, why is America stating that they're not using a nuke? They're not using a nuke. They're not going to use a nuke. But if they were to use a nuke, it would be a tactical one. One that does not warrant nuclear holocaust. One that does not warrant all-out, mutually assured destruction. It's like if they were going to do propaganda, they'd be like, Russia's going to nuke, Russia's going to nuke, Russia's going to nuke. Right? There's more nuke talk in NA news than EU news. Anyway, what is this AOC's take on Russia, Ukraine? Let's take a look at what she had to say. Did you speak on being confronted by anti-war protesters? Sure, they were actually not anti-war protesters. They were right-wing Trumpers, and some were LaRouche cult members, not progressives as they claimed. Their own social media history shows it was a stunt. Dude, I don't want to talk about this. I'm not reading this. I'm not talking about this. I fucking hate it. It is literally such a tiny, irrelevant sliver of extremely online fucking weirdos, and you guys are extremely online fucking weirdos for regularly bringing it up. I have avoided talking about it because they are completely fucking irrelevant, okay? Stop breathing fire into this. It's not a real fucking movement. It's like MAGA communism. You know what I mean? It's not real. It's not a real thing. What do you mean, you guys? I'm sorry. It's like the fucking weirdos in the chat that are like, dude, you got to talk about this. People have been asking me to cover that story as though it's a real story for so fucking long. It's like, no. Baby nuke talks, State Department heads trying to de-escalate the worst case scenario in the hearts and minds of USA citizens? Yes. So they could say, I told you so. We said that they were going to use a baby nuke, but don't worry. We also said that we weren't going to retaliate with, by activating our nukes and doing mutually assured self-destruction, mutually assured destruction. So that's what I'm saying. It's just like, I see that as a genuinely terrifying problem for Ukraine. And I'll admit, like, I don't know if Vladimir Putin like would do such a thing. Okay, I don't know. Like, I'm admitting it. I don't know at this point. If he feels cornered enough, if he feels like his back